Siege is a unique game that puts you into a unique situation. Gun skill and reaction time aren't all that you need to overcome the steep learning curve that new players must face. Strategical knowledge and understanding are what will make or break most of your matches. Welcome to Siege Basics. You came to this video to improve, so let's get straight into it. The number one thing that players can do to improve their game in Rainbow Six Siege overall is write down why they die every time they die. And now I'm sure you're thinking, what? This game isn't a job, it's a video game, I'm not gonna do this, and then you're gonna click off this video. But let me tell you right now, Siege is just like anything else in life. You get out of it what you put in. You clicked on this video to improve. If you're not willing to put in effort, you're not going to improve. Now, the rest of this video is intended to reach people who actually want to improve their game in Siege. Proceed with that in mind as you watch these next few parts. The first step to really getting into this process is buying a notebook, if you don't have one already. You could document everything on a computer, but I find it much harder to do that while you're mid-game. Writing is just much simpler. I would get one of those college-ruled notebooks with a lot of pages. But before we move on, let's get one thing straight. If you're the kind of person who blames everything on your teammates or even the enemy team, you're not going to get anywhere with this mindset. The mindset you should have is, damn, I should have checked that corner, or I should have droned better, instead of, what? Why are they playing there? You're such an idiot. No one ever plays in that corner. And then you go and tell them that they're stupid in the in-game chat. Every mistake or lost round is your fault to some extent. Sometimes even when you get team killed, it can be your fault. Say you ran in front of someone, or your teammate thought you were an enemy because you didn't communicate with them well enough. At the end of the day, every loss and every mistake comes right back to you. So if you don't learn from your mistakes and your losses, you're not gonna win. You're just gonna keep losing. Alright, let's get back on track here. Now that you're prepared, play the game like you normally would. This is gonna be the data collection phase. I would play at least 10 games, and every time you die or lose a round, or both, write down why that happened. I'll give you a couple examples here, because when I went through this process and wrote everything down, this was the most confusing part for me. Here are a couple of the most common scenarios. You hop into a room and get shot by someone camping in the corner. Did you drone? Did you know he was there? Write down that you didn't drone or that you didn't have intel on a room before you entered it. If you knew where someone was and tried to kill them but lost, write down that you just lost your gunfights. If you get killed by someone sitting in a corner, write down that you forgot to check that corner. Every time you die, make sure you think about why you died, make sure not to blame it on your teammates, and then write down why you died. If you make a bad call out and get your teammate killed, write stuff like that down as well. Think about every single thing that you could have possibly done better in a given situation, and write down what you could have done better. Now, if your team loses a round, think about why. Did you die early? Did you make the rotation or the breach on the wrong side of the wall? Did you get your drone killed early, or did you get picked off early? Write down every single mistake that you can think of. The only time that you shouldn't be writing anything down is when the score is 4-0 and you've died 0 times and made no mistakes. And even then, there are probably some things that you could improve on. There has never been a perfect game of Rainbow Six Siege, ever, and there probably will never be. Take advantage of your mistakes by learning how to fix them every time you make one. Also, make sure that you don't let the fact that you're recording your mistakes mess up your mindset or focus in any way. This can give you flawed results sometimes. Make sure you're not writing in your notebook during rounds when you should be watching cams or making call-outs. After you've accurately recorded your mistakes for at least 10 games, it's time to analyze your mistakes and figure out what you can do to improve. First off, look at what kind of mistakes you've been making. Are you making smaller mistakes, like forgetting to drone or placing the rotation on the wrong side, or are you the first pick on your team almost every round? How frequently are you making the mistakes that you're making? If you're seeing that you're losing gunfights and that's the reason for most of your deaths, consider hopping into a T-hunt and aim training, or even consider changing your sense. Next comes the most complex and challenging part of this process. Look at your biggest mistakes, how frequently you make them, and consider adapting your playstyle to make those mistakes happen less frequently. One of the biggest and most common mistakes players make is dying early. This mistake can often cost your team rounds or sometimes even games. If you find yourself getting picked off early, maybe within the first minute of a round, you need to make some changes to the way you play overall. Many players who came from games like Call of Duty or Fortnite might be pushing too aggressively and too early on in the round, and by doing that, you're going to die earlier. To fix this, think about what you're doing and slow down your playstyle. Take more time to drone and plan with your teammates. The great thing about Siege, and the reason that this game will always have a special place in my heart, is that you don't need to put on an insane performance every game and get a ton of kills to be helping your team. The longer you stay alive, the more you can do for your team, and in the long run, you'll end up with more kills the longer you're alive, if that's your thing. If you see yourself dying often because you're losing your gunfights, try practicing your aim a little bit. I'm going to be coming out with some really informative guides on sensitivity and aim training very soon, but as of now, play T-hunts frequently, and make sure you warm up before you play your games. If you're losing a lot of gunfights, even after you do those two things, try playing support roles where it's not necessary that you get kills to be successful, like maybe Thermite or Thatcher, people like those. And then the reason why I made this video part of my Siege Basics series is because I think that this process is necessary to developing a consistent and personalized playstyle. In every player's Siege journey, they should go through this process at least once to develop their playstyle. Also, I find this process super helpful when you're in a slump. Sometimes you feel like you're doing everything correctly, but still losing and getting killed often. This can often lead to tilt, which means a dramatic shift in your playstyle due to frustration of some kind. If you can analyze your mistakes objectively with this method, you can prevent the pendulum process of tilting. But remember that this advice will not help you at all if you aren't able to take responsibility for your mistakes that you make in Siege. Also, not everyone's going to have the same results with this, and you might not be learning from your mistakes the way that I mentioned in this video. So if you have any questions or are confused about anything, leave a comment on this video. I'll try my best to answer all the questions that you guys have. There's also a few other common issues that I'd like to go over right now as well. A lot of times players will be making mistakes that aren't too big, but are easily avoidable. A couple examples of these are things like picking the wrong gun on an operator, or maybe forgetting to unattach your suppressors or something, or forgetting to reinforce, or just messing up tiny things, maybe wasting your drones. These issues can often be a result from a lack of focus. Losing focus happens to everyone, even professionals, but there are a few things that you can do to sort of reset yourself and regain focus on the game. Sometimes when I play for a really long time, I get hungry and don't realize it, and I start losing focus because of that. So make sure you don't play too many games while you're hungry, and if you do get hungry, go get up and eat a sandwich or something. Another great way to reset your focus is just by sitting out for a game, and maybe listening to some nice music and relaxing for a little while. I know I need to use that trick often, and it really does help me. Also, losing focus isn't really something that you can counter in the long term. It's more of an in-the-moment thing that you have to catch and eliminate right when it's happening. Otherwise, you're going to end up losing focus and eventually end up losing your games. Another one of those bigger picture issues I was talking about earlier is playing too passively. If you're losing rounds because you're not in the building until there are 30 seconds left, you need to adjust your playstyle to fix that. I think this is a much less common issue than playing too aggressively, but it's still an issue that needs to be sorted out. Also, when you're making efforts to adjust your playstyle one way or the other, make sure you don't swing too far to one side. Siege is about balance. For example, if you're playing too aggressively, don't go the opposite direction and just sit outside the building and bait the entire game. That'll just put you in the same bad situation. And I'll say this again, if you've gone through this process and have any mistakes that I didn't mention in the video, leave a comment or stop by my Twitch and I'll answer all the questions you have. Also, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way, you can return the favor to me by liking and subscribing to this video and the channel. I also stream every day on Twitch, and I love getting to meet you guys over there. It's great to get to know you from the YouTube or from TikTok, and I'd appreciate it if you stopped by and dropped a follow. I'll see you guys next time.